All right, and it does look like we are officially recording, so thank you all for patience and letting me get that started. So once again, welcome to our Hour of Code 2024 Employer Panel Kickoff, celebrating Hour of Code for this week-long session. So to begin, just want to go over some quick accessibility statements. So individuals with accessibility needs requiring any sort of accommodations may reach out to these options below. So any online students can reach out to OAC at snhu.edu or call 866-305-9430. If you're a campus student, you can email cac at snhu.edu or call 603-644-3118. If you are an SNHU staff or faculty member, you can simply reach out to HR at snhu.edu. And again, any request for live captioning or live ASL interpreting requires at least 3 weeks of advance notice. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our next slide. For those who are not familiar with SNHU Career Services, we are a lifelong career services and a career exploration service and support system for all of our current online students and online alumni, and it's a free service for life. If you're interested in connecting with us, please don't hesitate to do so. You can email us directly at career at snhu.edu or give us a call anytime, 888-672-1458. We also have a plethora of social media handles in which you can follow us or connect with us, and that includes Facebook, Instagram, we have X, we also have a strong LinkedIn community, we even have an SNHU Career YouTube channel as well. We highly encourage you to also check out our newly launched Central Career Services Hub called Career 360, where you can find tons of information, tons of career resources for you to continue to explore. So we'll be adding some of these links here in the chat momentarily, but again, don't hesitate to reach out to your dedicated career services team if you need assistance. So quickly just going to go over our agenda for our Hour of Code presentation. So we'll welcome everybody. We'll go over some quick FAQs, as well as go over briefly the Hour of Code upcoming schedules and the sessions that are going to be happening and taking place the remainder of this week. Then we will introduce our amazing panelists who are here today, and then we'll wrap it up with some Q&A. So just to quickly go over Hour of Code, if you've never heard of Hour of Code before, don't know what it is, Hour of Code in a nutshell is a week-long global event, which really started with a 1-hour introduction to computer science. And really the goal ultimately was to kind of demystify what it meant to code and really show that anybody who has a strong interest or passion or just curious about coding can really learn the basics and participate in this amazing field and broad field of computer science. So what do we do for the Hour of Code through SNHU? Well, this week, students will get the opportunity to join our amazing STEM faculty members through what we call coding games or coding sessions. So these are virtual activities that will take place for 1 hour each day. So again, you'll take a look at the Hour of Code sessions. We'll add that link here in the chat momentarily. So you can register and sign up for any of those 1-hour sessions. They're taking place sporadically throughout the week. So whichever session works best for you and your schedule, you can participate. And it's really a great opportunity for you to connect with your peers, connect with your faculty in a really fun and engaging way. It also gives you a really unique opportunity to build important skills for the future through fun and engaging coding activities. So the first session actually will be taking place today at 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's session 1. So again, if you're interested in joining that gaming session, we'll add the link here to register for that momentarily. But we hope to see you at 3 o'clock again today. And just a quick snapshot of what the remainder of the Hour of Code schedule looks like. So as I said, today we do have our first gaming session activity that takes place at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Then once again, we'll have another multiple sessions on Wednesday the 4th, one at 2 p.m. Eastern, and then an evening session at 7 p.m. Eastern. Thursday, we'll have one in the morning at 10:30 Eastern, another session that Thursday at 3 p.m., and then Friday, to wrap it all up, we'll have one session in the morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So once again, please feel free to register and sign up for any sessions that work best for you, and we hope to see you there. With that, I will now turn it over to my colleague Dana to introduce our amazing panelists. Dana?
Thank you so much, Alyssa. We are so much looking forward to introducing our fantastic panelists for today. And thank you all for joining us for Hour of Code. First, we have Jim Blisky from Baptist Health System. So Jim, if you want to say hello and maybe introduce yourself while your slide's up on the screen here.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me. So Jim Bilski with Baptist Health in Jacksonville, Florida, a SNHU grad, both in my bachelor's and my master's. So certainly have an extensive background in technology and an interesting journey from beginning in software development to my current role in enterprise IT operations.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jim. Great to have you here today. And next up, we have Tina Puso, and Tina works with Scientific Systems. So, Tina, if you'd like to say hello while your slide is up on the screen as well, we're happy to have you here.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. My name's Tina. I actually did my undergrad not in computer science, and then I went on to do computer science. So I'm very interested in seeing like who's here to join and who's in it and who's not. So cool.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tina. And next up, we have Kale Sweeney. Kale works with SilverTech as an engineering team lead. So, Kale, please say hello to the group.
Hi, so my name is Kale. I am a team lead here at SilverTech in Bedford, New Hampshire, not too far from SNHU. I lead a team of software engineers. We build websites for large companies and governments, things like banks, manufacturers, e-commerce, healthcare, hospitals, you name it. In particular, SilverTech implements custom website building platforms. They're called content management systems or digital experience platforms. So that's kind of the focus here, and look forward to chatting.
Excellent. And I think we are all set there. I know it looks like Samantha might be on her way, but not here just yet. So if we want to jump into some of the questions here first, we'd love to get that started. So Alyssa and Gary, if we want to get the Q&A started with some of those student submitted questions, and then of course the career related questions as well.
Okay, that sounds good. I think there's a career-related question that's the best to start with, and I'm going to throw it at Tina because you didn't start in computer science. What advice would you offer to non-coders exploring this world, perhaps for the first time this week? Absolutely perfect question for the Hour of Code.
Okay. Well, let me think about this. So I think coding is a skill that pretty much you can use in any field. And that's actually why I originally got interested in it. I was doing environmental science and I thought this would pair really well with what I was doing. It worked out that I ended up getting my master's in computer science because I ended up kind of falling in love with it and kind of switched gears to be more to do that. And that's actually the field I'm working in today. But so it's funny because you could go into it as using it to help you in the field you're in now and end up absolutely loving it and, becoming one like I did.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think I'm going to send this one to Kale. This is a student survey question. What resources would you recommend to prepare for a technical interview?
Technical interview, you really want to know the company you're applying for. Employers are very interested in people that have a particular focus and a mission. So definitely, if you know you're going to be, interviewing with a certain company, do your homework, know what they do, talk about things that you might be excited to do at that company. Second, I would just try to stay current and aware of the technologies in the industry. So good sites for that. O'Reilly has some good emails. They do all those software books, but they send out like a monthly email. That's a good one, kind of an overview of the industry. Participate in stuff like this. Listen to industry experts. Try to stay current.
All right, thank you. Do the other panelists have anything they want to add before I go to the next question for James?
Yeah, so I'd echo what Kale you said. Certainly know the company. Bring energy, right? Bring excitement to the interview. I don't know how many interviews I've had where candidates were just ho-hum about the position, even though they may have really been excited it didn't come through. So bring that energy and also be, willing to do whatever that opportunity is. The biggest thing is get in the door and then navigate your career from there. Very rarely do any of us start in the ultimate job that we wanted to be in, right? So you get in and you just navigate and work through the organization.
Thank you. And this one's going to James. To start off, what are some of the essential soft skills that drove your success in industry?
Great question, right? So for me, critical thinking, right? I think Tina kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, right? Coding is logical, so extend that logic to your day in, day out activities. Whether it's, in my role, I have teams that do troubleshooting, problem analysis, service management, and it's all critical thinking skills that really stem from software development or program logic, right? Have the problem, make decisions, move forward, backtrack. That's probably the biggest skill that we see the need for, is just that ability to critically think and move forward.
Excellent. Does anyone have anything they want to add to that?
I would add communication, being able to communicate the problem in a way. There was that saying, like, if you write out a problem well enough, it's half solved. That is a huge skill set to have, especially when you're working on a team, because you will be working on a team. You'll be working with other people, so you need to be able to talk to them, understand what each other want, all that kind of stuff. So communication and listening, communication and listening, two huge skills to have.
Okay, thank you. And I'll send this to Tina because you're next up in the queue. What are your 3 top interview questions you would ask a potential new hire?
So I'm probably the newest one to this world. I'm a newer hire. So personally, I don't know exactly what, I've never actually done it, but what I would ask is, firstly, I kind of wouldn't do the whole coding under duress thing because I feel like it freaks people out. I'd honestly ask about their hobbies. I'd ask how they work well with others and how they problem solve in general. So that's just, but I've never actually done an interview, so I wouldn't know.
Anyone else want to provide some questions that they would ask?
I would say that a lot of the interview questions, the good ones from the good companies you really want to get into, the interview questions come from left field. One of the best interview questions I was asked was, how many registered cars are in the United States? Now think out loud. And really what you're looking for there is the process of how they think, because the tech landscape is constantly changing. So you really need troubleshooters more than experts at a very specific piece of technology. You need flexibility, and you got to be able to think on your feet. So I would say be ready for some left field questions. Another big question I was asked, I thought was really great, was draw the internet on a whiteboard. Just draw as much as you can. And then the interviewer was pointing out certain sections, and they talked to me more about HTTP protocol, talk to me more about what a web server does. So just you can prepare for an interview, but know that a lot of the good interviews are not going to be straightforward.
Yeah, Cal, that's a great point, right? You try and tease out the logic and the thought process of the candidate. I know one interview question that I had used, historically when I was looking at developers was similar. Why is a manhole cover round? I think that originated in Microsoft, right? And again, you don't really care what the answer is. You care about the reaction and their process to come up with an answer. Because in development, it's never perfect, it's never done, and it's never 100% right. So you always have to go back. So how do you reassess? How do you look at the problem? How do you come up with a logical, defensible answer is more the drive of the question. But left field is definitely where they're coming.
Excellent, thank you. So let's go back to a student question. What's the most necessary pipeline to study while in school to stay relevant and valuable? For example, cloud computing, machine learning, front-end development, or even game engines. We'll open this up to everyone.
Well, I'll throw something out. I mean, it's interesting, right? Those are all the current topics of the day, the buzzwords of the day, which is great. You know, there's definitely needs for that, but don't overlook the other traditional areas, right? There's still need for payroll systems, inventory systems, applications that drive business, and it may not always be the coolest tech, but there's definitely a need for it. And then go back to, one of my opening comments. If that's where you want to go, don't be afraid to take something different just to get in the door and get that experience. The first role is the toughest, and then you can maybe leverage into virtual reality or other things. I know in healthcare, it's a huge industry. It's a lot of things. We're looking at virtual reality for, end of life patients. How do you get them who can't get out of a bed back to a beach or a place they like? So there's definitely need, and just navigate, look to navigate your career, but don't just say, I want to start as a VR engineer and, that's the only job I'm going to take, because that may be a long wait.
I would add that really focus on the basics of computing. So many people get lost in like AI and stuff like that, and those are great technologies to know, but when things when things break, like people are going to be asking very basic questions about databases, about networking, about how a computer works. And the most valuable people in the room every time are going to be the ones that have super solid foundations, like they really understand what is going on. So focus on the basics of computing, and really understand how it all comes together. And then, find your interest and take off in that direction. But I really would emphasize the foundations.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar, like study what you're interested in, but while you're in school, you really want to be kind of learning the things that will be applicable wherever you end up. And then those skills you can grow when you're in the role.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to throw another one to the group. What kind of ethical responsibilities do industry leaders have in 2024, and how does this change moving forward?
I mean, there's obviously AI, like how much control do you want to give an AI over certain things, that kind of stuff.
Gary, what we like as far as ethics goes, give me a few examples of that, because ethics is such a big topic.
It is. Let's give you an example. For example, do you have a code of ethics that is used in your company? And I'm thinking, for example, IEEE has a computer society has a code of professional standards and ethics. Does your company maybe apply some code of ethics like that?
Yeah, so part of the SilverTech's mission statement is authenticity, and that means complete, transparent honesty with not only the people you work with, but also your clients. Everybody's owed the truth, and we really stand by that. And if you can build that rapport and that trust with your clients, you're going to have a lot of success.
Yeah, Gary, I'd echo, our mission statement for the organization in healthcare. Our clinicians, certainly have a direct code of ethics through their credentialing. And, we were just really an extension of that. I don't work at the bedside. I don't pretend to work at the bedside, but I impact patient care each and every day, either through the tech that I deliver, the services, the network, the database, right? So knowing that and making sure you align to that purpose. I don't know we've formalized it at the individual contributor level in the IT space, but we definitely work towards the overall corporate objectives and mission.
I would just add, flip it around. When ethics fail in this field, it causes a lot of slowdown and it causes a lot of damage. So you'll be surprised once you get into the industry how much emphasis is put around security, user roles, restricting people's access based on like your role in the company, because sometimes internally is where your drop in ethics is going to come from, and someone's going to try to steal something from the client or access information they shouldn't have. So the industry is actually slower because it has to focus so heavily on ethics failing us, and we need to build up security and reduce exposure.
Okay, thank you. This one we've somewhat covered, but it's a student question and I'd like to present it to the group. What skills stand out for potential developer hire? What do you look for, in other words?
I would say willingness to work on a team or the ability to work well with others. You don't really ever, you're never gonna just be on a project really by yourself anymore. Like it's just the way it is. Like back in the day maybe, but now it's like you're working on a team with from 5 to 400 people writing the same code. So that's really important. For the same reason, kind of like understanding source control and how to actually produce code on that larger scale, which sometimes kind of gets overlooked, and then you'll get a job and it'll be kind of a smack in the face, because it's very different from turning in a single project, working on a single project, than working with 400 plus people and needing to know Git and all that stuff. That's really important, I think.
I like that you brought up Git. We use that in our computer science program, and every course in the near future we'll use Git.
Yeah.
Every single course. Yeah.
I probably use Git once every 5 minutes.
Yep.
There's something when you get into the technical world. One of the ways we go kind of train you up is we do something called a pull request. So you have these giant repos of code, right? And they're like an application, like for a robot brain or a website or something like that. That code base, you can't just enter code into it. You're going to have senior leadership around that code base, and they're going to be taking what's called a pull request from you, and they're going to be reviewing your code, giving you pointers, making your code cleaner, making it safer. So yeah, Git is super important.
Yeah, I'd echo everything that was said. For us, we look for the logic skills, and then we'll train you up in the skills that we need specifically for the task at hand. So just having that ability to, have the breadth of background, and Kale, you mentioned it, right? The broad understanding of just the technologies in general. That's more important to us. And then our philosophy is just come with a great attitude and the willingness to work, and we'll give you the training and get you productive in wherever we need you.
I would also add there's this misnomer with technology companies that we value perfection and we value people being 100% right and smart all the time. It's the opposite. We like people that like to swim in broken code. We like people that make mistakes, that break things, that are vocal about it, but then they have the grit to get in there and fix it again. It's much more of a fight than a ballet. We're not perfectionists. We're really in there just breaking stuff and rebuilding it. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't express that as much as you can at the interview if that's inside you.
Excellent answer. I agree. That's how we work. That's how I've always worked. All right, let's do this. Let's go to James to start with. We'll ask this to each person in turn. Describe a day in the life of your current role.
I saw that on the list, and that's an interesting question, right? So every day is a unique day. It depends on what's going on in the world, what's going on in our environment. And it can be wrecked at any moment from a security incident or, things that go on where we're, activating different things. Currently, I would say, most of my day is on the strategic planning side, coaching and mentoring the next level of leadership, and helping them drive forward in just the normal activities of the business, from our field engineering team to service desk to development to network engineers and so on. The other side of that is we're heavily going down the SRE path. So everything we're trying to do is infrastructure as code. So driving all that automation and consistency, because for us, we can't scale people fast enough and we have a geographic challenge. So the way we combat that is vicious standardization and automation. So we're looking to automate everything we can so I can keep what I'll say, the air quote, the smart people in the back room and make them work wherever to cover the enterprise. So a lot of focus is on that as well.
Okay, let's ask the same thing to Cale.
Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Describe a day in the life of your current role.
So it's study English, because you're going to be sending a lot of email. I spend like the first 30 minutes to an hour every day just answering emails, Microsoft Team chats, just making sure everybody has like what they need to do their job for the day. I spend about 3 hours-ish in meetings, basically helping projects along, helping make sure the design is sound, make sure people have what they need. If they're having trouble, making sure that they have the support to get out of that trouble. Spend about 2 or 3 hours doing pull requests I just talked about with the Git, just making sure that the code that we are putting into production, putting out there on the internet, is as best as we can make it. And it gives me an opportunity to kind of teach junior engineers a few tips. And then one of the things I like about tech is about 30 minutes a day I have like a good social life, really. I get to hang out and talk to people, and we work in open concepts, so we're always chatting and goofing, laughing at stuff. So there's a social aspect to tech that's like one of the things I really like about it.
Okay, Tina.
So mine's going to be a little different because I'm a baby engineer. I'm like first year in. So the breaking stuff they were talking about, that's all I do. I go in, we do if you're going to be in the tech world, you're going to want to learn kind of like software engineer practices. And we do kind of like an agile waterfall mix, but we do a daily stand-up. So we talk about what we're going to do for the day, see if we're blocked. That just means like, oh, I need you to do something so I can do something. So you talk. And then I usually have like a smaller task because again, I'm new and they're trying to teach me and mentor me, which is nice. And then I do the work, I send in a pull request. My mentor will rip it apart very nicely and say, give me all the feedback I need. And then I redo it and then I send it back and then the days go on. That's about it. And I don't have as many meetings or emails yet, but I think in the future maybe. But for now, it's very nice. I don't have an overload of either. So.
All right, thank you. We'll go back to a student question for this one. Which online coding sites are best to test your skills and learn new techniques? What is the best way to practice and build on the skill of coding? Anyone want to jump in?
I'd say if you already have a base level knowledge of a language, there's a lot of YouTube videos that'll walk you through projects. And I loved doing projects because at the end, you're learning and then you have something you can put on your resume. So it's really like a bang for your buck. And then Leet Code, I don't know if you guys are familiar, LEET code. That was just a really nice, we use that a lot in, when I was doing my master's, a lot of my assignments were like, go do 20 Leet Code problems. It's just fun and they're they're good for problem solving and kind of working that muscle in your brain.
One of the newer tools that I use, like an hour or two a day is, ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude. There's a bunch of AI models out there, but take your code, put it into one of these AI systems, just a snippet, and I say, what do you think of this code? What's wrong with it? What could be better? And then when it responds and you don't understand a line or two, ask it more. Ask it like, well, why is it like that? What's the strategy behind it? So that's kind of a newer way to do it. I highly recommend kind of learning to interface with AI as you build stuff. At the same time, don't lean on it too much, because
I was about to say that you don't want to be doing that, because it gets stuff wrong, and sometimes will not do the most optimal way. Like, I've put stuff in and been like, that's not right. That can't be right. So.
All right, thank you. Let's ask, I think this one would be good for Tina, because your career path seems to be non-traditional. What are non-traditional coding career paths that students may not be aware of?
Well, when you say that, do you mean like if you went into computer science, what are some kind of other things you could do with it, or
that, or even if you started somewhere else other than computer science? Because a lot of the folks who are here today and we're going to be participating in Hour of Code have no computer science background.
Okay. Wait, what was the question?
Okay.
It was non-traditional career paths. Okay. Yeah.
Non-traditional career paths.
So it's kind of interesting, because I did not start off at doing computer science, but I did go and I did get a master's in it. So I had like, by the end of it, I had a very, very solid background. I do think learning to code is a very, very essential skill, and it can help you in any field. I do think you have to be careful about taking 1 or 2 classes and learning a language and thinking you can get hired anywhere. That is like kind of, because one thing is, I think with AI and everything, the kind of level has increased with like learning the language is one thing and it's great. But it's almost like the English language. It's like having a very sound, being able to speak the language is one thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna be like hired as an author, if that makes sense. So you should learn to code because it's just like a great skill. But just be aware, like if you want to kind of switch gears and go into it, you're gonna have to do some work and learn all that stuff, if that makes sense.
I would add that I was an English major at UNH, and so that was my undergrad. I got my master's in computer science, like Tina, but for 7 years after I graduated with an English degree, I got into search engine optimization, because search engine and English are very closely tied together. So, doing SEO type stuff, like optimizing the way sites are found via search engines. And then, product catalogs, like a lot of library science is based like on taxonomies. How do you organize like a giant catalog of products in a logical way that people could navigate? So, being those end user, like being a marketer basically, but on the tech side, I was able to see the engineers and the IT department, and seeing that from afar, I was like, wow, those guys are like intense. Like what they're doing is crazy. So that kind of motivated me to do night classes. I went to Boston University and did night classes there, and then got my computer science while I was working kind of on the marketing side. And now, interestingly, a lot of the technology I build was for my former self. So there are advantages to like, look at what you do now, and then what technology helps you. Maybe you can build that technology because you've been an end user.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back to a student question, the last student question. What resources would you recommend to prepare for a technical interview?
I think thinking back to the beginning of the conversations, I think just be prepared for left field questions, right? Anything dynamic, expect the unexpected. I don't know a resource necessarily that will help you with that, but be ready to think on your feet, be challenged with something that will, might make you very uncomfortable, in thinking, or, just question where is this even coming from?
If you want to do a perfect interview, some people will, they just love to ask questions about sorting. So like quick sort, bubble sort, all those sorting questions.
And
Big
that's
O
on
notation.
LeetCode. Yeah,
Yeah, Big
those
O
sorts of
notation.
things.
That's the one.
I think when it comes to interviews, you kind of want to practice more than anything else, not knowing something in a graceful way. I remember my first interview, I didn't know something and I panicked and it was horrible. And then the second interview I went in, I just kind of calmed down and was like, it's okay to not know things, but be ready to discuss that with them, kind of like, have a conversation about the problem, even if you don't know an answer right away.
I would also say when you're in an interview and you start struggling, ask yourself, do you really belong in this role? Do you really want to work for this company? They're asking you all these things that you don't know. It's like your first year of work is gonna be hell. If like you don't really fit the role, but somehow you ace the interview. So interviews go two ways. Like when you're interviewing the company, really you throw questions back at your interviewer and ask them what it's life like here. Like, what am I expected to do in a daily role? Why did you want me to know that? Like, how does that apply to the stuff you do every day?
Excellent. I'm going to ask Alyssa, would you like more questions or would you prefer to go to a Q&A session now, given the timing?
That's a great question, Gary. I think if that's all right with you, I think we'll transition to the Q&A that's been coming through the chat. We've got some really great questions that have come through. So I do want to make sure we have time to get to those before we wrap. So I think Dana will kick us off and then I'll finish off the rest. So Dana, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Savard, and our panelists so far. So great discussion. I've been excited to hear all your advice. And as our questions have been coming in, Alyssa's been doing a great job collecting those. So first one that I have here, what would you say to someone who does not have IT or technical background, but maybe considering switching majors?
Well, I would try, do some coding, play around first, like watch a YouTube video, that kind of stuff before switching. If you know you're really interested in it, then I would say anyone can do it, background regardless. Like if you want to learn code, you can. I didn't have any technical experience whatsoever, and I jumped right into a master's. But because I was passionate about it and I liked it enough, then I was able to do it just fine. Loved it. So it's all about if you're interested in it, you can learn anything. Like anyone can learn anything. Nothing can stop you but yourself.
I love that. Thank you so much, Tina. And a great kind of segue into joining those gaming sessions later this week, because you can just test out some of those coding skills. That's awesome. And then Jim or Kale, any insights from either of you on a switching majors question?
I would say similar to Tina, try it out. It's something you find you're passionate about or not, right? I don't know many people that are just coders for the sake of coding without a passion or a drive for it, because there's always learning, there's always challenges. So if you're not, intrinsically driven by that, then you may find that career very challenging. So play with it before you take that leap. I stumbled in it accidentally. I wanted nothing to do with coding, but did it and then just fell in love with it and, haven't ever looked back. So you never know until you try. And, Tina's spot on. It takes no skill. Everyone can do it. And there's nothing holding you back except yourself.
I would add software development is intense. It's exhausting. The buck stops with you. When there is a problem and things are broken, and everything's on fire, you are the last resort as a coder, as an engineer. That's a lot of pressure. So make sure you like it. Second, if you're good at coding and you come in with a ancient Egypt degree, I'm going to hire you. You don't need a computer science degree to get hired by a tech company. You just need the skills and the passion, and maybe some history, maybe some projects. So, if you really like a certain major, but you want to be technical, keep that major. Like, your one time is college, to like learn that interesting subject, and then the rest of your life is going to be a lot of work. So, think about that.
I love that. Thank you so much, Kel and Jim and Tina. And as long as you're passionate, can show that passion. That definitely resonates as you're going through interviews and things like that. So love to hear that. All right. And then kind of in a similar vein, maybe, if you have certain recommendations of maybe things you might have practiced with or anything like that, but how can you break into the computer science field or get your foot in the door when you have no experience? So outside of, classwork, maybe, any tools like you mentioned, Lead Code, but other things that they can gain experience that you might have experienced through your work.
I found YouTube to be really helpful because a lot of the videos would kind of walk you through like kind of setting up like your environment and stuff, the things you don't always think about, which when I first wanted to learn kind of stopped me because it's like the little things used to scare me. So those kind of help you to, they'll help you set up the environment, then show you the syntax. It's really baby steps, some of the videos that I've seen at least. Or if you know anyone who codes, like I love showing my friends, hey, it's not magic because I hate magic. I'm like, it's science, it's easy. It's, you just need to know some basic stuff and then you can do it. So if you know someone, that's great. If not, I love YouTube.
Yeah, I would say network, right? Network. Whoever you know or somebody they may know. Also look to volunteer, right? Volunteer time either back to school or back to, a business, and just say you want to work in that IT space, right? So, that's another way to break in and get some experience without the pressure of being hired or everything that goes along with becoming an employee. You can just give back at the same time. And then look at other venues, whether it's, coding and coffee. There's lots of, different forums out there. You just have to kind of search for what's in your area and navigate that a little bit.
I would say SilverTech occasionally does internships. So we basically, pull in students that are actually still in school, like during summer break. And they just sit down next to the engineers and we give them real work. And, we teach them, some of the real like practical applicable coding that we use every day. And if we like them, we usually hire them. So internships are a great way to break in. The other thing is the QA teams are often seen as like kind of unglamorous because you're testing other people's code. You're not building stuff that yourself. But once you get into QA, you realize you actually are building quite a bit. You're, making automated testing and stuff. And so I've seen a lot of people just waltz into any company they wanted to by focusing on QA and then transitioning to whatever position they wanted.
That's fantastic, and really kind of getting that experience under your belt there and developing it. So, and don't underestimate, talk to your career advisor about transferable skills, right? So, coding is a lot of like just figuring out puzzles, right? So if you're a good problem solver, I'm sure that's, transferable. Awesome. And that was another great segue, Kale. So, if any of you can share any information about, what you'd recommend for getting into a software engineering or programming internship, what tips you might recommend?
Every company will have like an automated process. Sometimes they'll like have a posting on their site and you'll like fill out a form and then, you wait, or like, on Indeed, you like submit your resume on Indeed and then you wait. I argue, go to the place, knock on the door, talk to the receptionist, try to get someone to talk to you. Pick up the phone, call them. That old school face-to-face over the phone type interaction will be more successful, in my opinion, on getting traction on places you want to get into.
Yeah, totally agree. We may get 300 or 400 applications for an internship, and honest, no one's going to sit there and sort through it. There's not enough time. It's going to be automated. It's going to be filtered out, and yeah, you're going to have to fight your way in. And the best way to do that is go down, talk. Go find HR in the corporate building and go visit. Go. If you can find a friend who knows somebody, leverage your contacts. Do not be afraid to leverage contacts. It's not a bad thing. It helps you get the door and in the door, and then it's up to you thereafter. So certainly look to do that as well.
Yep, all about networking.
Love that. Yep, networking in person, kind of hitting that pavement. And then of course, SNHU, you all have access to Handshake, which is a great resource for internships, entry point jobs, things like that. So be sure to connect with your SNHU career advisor about the Handshake job platform and all the resources available. And let's see here. So I do have a question. I feel like we have touched on it a couple times. So specific online programs to practice coding. I know LeetCode has been mentioned, Udemy, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then I know someone just mentioned
LinkedIn Learning too.
Git, LinkedIn Learning, all of that. So anything else that you can think of to add to that list at all for practicing?
No, Udemy has some great education. Microsoft has tools. I think everyone has has tools available. They're generally free for students or at home use. Just tackle a problem. Don't be afraid to learn something new. If you're a C developer, look for another language just to learn. It's all the same. It's the same, there's loops, there's conditions, there are, math equations. Just learn how to do it, and it helps you with your logic, because that's where you really need to be, is how do I logically solve that problem? And then the language becomes almost irrelevant, because if you can do it logically, you can do it in code.
I would add to that, so I know JavaScript, Python, Java itself, C#. And on the outside, that sounds impressive, but to anybody in the industry, they're like, yeah, of course you do. Because as James is saying, it's all the same kind of mechanics under the hood.
If you know assembly, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah, once you learn one, it snowballs and it gets easier to learn the others.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And I know Alyssa had some other questions that she wanted to touch on too. So I'll let Alyssa jump in.
Thanks, Dana, and thank you, panelists. This advice has been amazing so far. So a few other questions have come through, so I'll just read them aloud here. So generally speaking, or in your own opinion, what skills relatively would you say that an entry-level programmer should have? And this is popcorn style. Anyone, feel free to chime in.
I would say soft skills. You need to be a writer, because you're going to be communicating a lot in writing, whether that's a pull request, comment, an email. You need to be able to speak clearly and articulate ideas, because software is complicated and you're going to need to describe to people what you built or what you intend to build. So those are two soft skills. If you really want to be valuable and really attractive, learn a front-end language like some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, then learn a back-end language like C#, Python, Java, and then go even further back and learn some SQL, learn how to run a database. If you have that stack, it'd be hard to say no to.
Awesome. Thanks, team. And Kale, this question came in specifically for you, so wanted to throw it your way. The question is, do you think different companies having different styles of writing code or structuring directories and writing Git messages body? What is kind of your take on that? And do you think most companies do have different types of styles?
Styles of using Git. One of the things software companies do, and it's like it happens because software engineers bounce around typically. They work at multiple companies, and because of that, a lot of these practices kind of get universalized, and it's a very good thing that happens, because you can get somebody in from another company and they can hit the ground running, and they're not surprised by all these weird methodologies that a company might use. So in general, it's going to be pretty similar across the board, the use of Git. At least that's been my experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Kale. And this is for anyone to jump in. But what industries do you think, in your opinion, are most in need of people with strong coding skills?
I would just say, all industries. I can't think of an office that doesn't have software that needs to be worked on. I will say that industries that have a lot of money at the moment can hire more software engineers. So that would be like classic tech, like the FANG set, like Facebook, Apple, all those, Amazon, and then companies that have major high margins, so like pharmaceuticals, finance, banking, health, hospitals.
Awesome. Thanks, Kale. Tina, Jim, any thoughts on that as well?
I think any industry, there's not one that's not automated. So, there's a need everywhere at the moment. So I would say if you're looking at an industry, look to see if they're traditionally in-house developed software or commercial software, right? So we're a very commercial software health system. So we look to commercial products and less to in-house. So you may want to look at that if you have a specific passion towards an industry.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. We had a question come in about if anyone has any experience specifically working with UX designers. So in that vein, what traits make UX designers easy to work with, or what technical skills do you all think would be beneficial for a UX designer to have?
I would say look at things from the consumer perspective and push it backwards, not from an engineering perspective forward, right? I don't know how many times I've had conversations around the engineer's perspective of the design versus how the consumer wants to consume it. So if you take it from the consumer's perspective and then decide on the technology to deliver that, not the other way around.
Yeah, I don't think I've had a single project where the business side and the UX side didn't get their way. I mean, they design something and you build it. But one of the great things about being UX is like you get to control a lot of the end product, and then the engineers have to figure out how to implement it. I would say Figma is like the latest and greatest. Figma is kind of a way to like present your designs to clients. Adobe has a few tools.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Is there a language that you all would recommend that someone should get started with, kind of introducing themselves to coding? And how do you suggest, or what's your opinions on really having someone become sufficient in that specific programming language?
I mean, Python's the easiest to get started with because it's very intuitive. But I didn't actually, I learned Python and C at the same time. I kind of did like the lowest and the highest, and I kind of liked doing that. in a way. I don't know what your guys' opinions on that is, though.
If you learn JavaScript, Python, and C, like you pretty much understand most of it. Like your knowledge gaps are almost taken care of with that kind of breadth. But as much as I don't want to, as a backend engineer, classically trained in like Java and C#, I don't want to admit it, but it's just reality. JavaScript is eating the world. Like you just can't get away from JavaScript. And the biggest thing is that JavaScript folks have figured out how to make JavaScript apply to the back end. So now JavaScript can do the job of C, C#, and Python. That said, JavaScript can be hard to learn because it's so loose. Like when you make a mistake, it can be impossible to find.
Yeah, I would just say pick a language and then just pick another, right? It just consume as much as you can. And again, it goes back to the only thing stopping you is you. So, pick one that's easy. Whether, Tina mentioned Python, pick that and then move on to C# or JavaScript. And again, the more tools you have, the more valuable you'll become.
There's different paradigms of languages. There's concepts of like object-oriented languages, and then there's functional languages. I would tend to try to side on the object-oriented side of things because it teaches you good code structure and it's a little bit easier. Functional programming as a paradigm can get like pretty in depth and difficult to understand sometimes. So just be aware of that paradigm. Like different programming languages lean more functional or object-oriented.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. So we only have a few minutes here, so wanted to kind of squeeze in at least one more question here. But all of us, given the state of the world as it is with AI and all that's trending within AI, can't help but try to ask this question to all of you to get your insights. But what are you seeing within your own line of work, within your own company or industry, that AI is having any sort of significant impact? What is that looking like for you, or just what are your own thoughts and insights about how AI is impacting kind of the computer science field as a whole?
In healthcare, we're struggling with the hallucination aspect for the patient side. So we're splitting it into what's patient facing, physician facing, and then just back end AI operations. So the back side is easier, obviously. The front side, when dealing with patient care, if it hallucinates from an AI perspective, that could be significant. So we're struggling with that aspect. And how do we balance that and use that, but not with the intent of replacing the physician and the oversight that the caregiver has, but to complement them, to bring awareness to things they may not be aware of. So it's definitely a crawl on that side.
I would say as far as AI in my industry and how I use it, I pay $10 a month for Copilot, and that's integrated into my Visual Studio IDE. So like where I type code. And when a year ago, I typed code on my own, just writing it out. But now I have a conversation inside my text editor with this AI ghost that's kind of just following me. And, if there's something simple like, hey, I need a for loop, I'll just in a comment, I'll write a comment, I'm like, just can you give me a for loop? And it suddenly appears. There's like chat bubbles. I can talk to it, ask questions about is this safe? Did I create a security hole here? So my cursor is AI now. So when I type something, it gives me recommendations, or I can start a conversation with it. It's kind of a wild time to be a developer, and it's only going to get crazier. One more thing about interviews. If you give me a resume that's a bunch of AI fluff, I will burn it. Right. I'd rather see a couple grammatical mistakes than just getting a bunch of verbose AI stuff about your resume and your experiences. So try to add the human element when you're communicating with other humans.
Handwrite it and mail it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, panelists, so much. We are at time, so I want to be cognizant of that. Just really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here with all of us this afternoon. I think, Dana, I'll turn it over to you for any final closing remarks.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you again. Virtual round of applause to our fabulous panelists today. Thank you all so much for being here. And if anyone has any follow-up questions about the event, please feel free to reach out to engagecareer@snhu.edu. If you'd like to schedule time with an SNHU Career advisor, you can reach out to cocecareer@snhu.edu. And we look forward to helping you with your goals and initiatives and everything. And keep an eye out for additional sessions. So go back to that page and jump into the gaming sessions happening throughout this week. And thank you again for joining us today. So Kale, Tina, Jim, Gary, Alyssa, thank you all so much. And everyone, we will hopefully see you at some of the gaming sessions later on. Thank you again.
Thank you all, team. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.